Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJ Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings, 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464838. WhatsApp us on 3259220. Or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
Madam Speaker, it seems as if a good part of my contribution has already come forward, and to save more time, because we have other businesses, I do not need to go back to those once again. We all agree that the bill is needed. We need to be corruption-free, with or without a law being imposed on us, because we belong to different faiths. But naturally, you see in the whole world, the entire history of the world, there was no existing religion in the world that encourages corruption. So, of course, the bill comes at a time when the electorates are asking all the time, when is this bill coming? And personally, I give my support to the bill, but I have few concerns. Starting from the corruptions that we are talking about, yes, it has something to do with our incomes. Because if your expenses at any time is more than your income, you must have to go somewhere and look for something, in one way or the other. It also necessitates some corruptions. But I think there are different types of corruptions, like somebody alluded to. A police officer standing on a traffic, asking for money from a driver is corruption. Of course, it directly affects the citizens. But there are certain types of corruptions. Those are not for, low-income earners. A project that has been proposed to benefit the citizenry and approved by the National Assembly on behalf of the citizens. You see at the end of that project, it has no impact automatically. And in fact, a good number of them are loans that the citizens are going to pay. These are the type of corruptions that is bringing problems to our economic situation at any time. So I think we have to make that difference. Apart from that, my only contribution is going to be on the selection of the committee. It has clearly been spelled by the bill. But my concern there is the conditionalities that are attached to the selection. I'm appealing to the minister that let them not compromise those conditionalities, because that will prove the integrity of the commission. And finally, the commission, in fact, it has been alluded to by a member of Willie East, that a lot of money is budgeted for the commission. I'm really happy about that, because these people need to be independent, one, and they need to be fully equipped. They should not ask for anybody to give them their phone. That will also save their integrity. Madam Speaker, with this few remarks, I thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Thank you. Jara Central.
Thank you very much, Ma, for giving me the floor. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to join my honorable colleagues who spoke before me on the coming of this bill, Anti-Corruption Bill 2019. I would commend the Honorable Attorney General and Minister for Justice for taking it very timely to come up with this bill and then table it on this in the National Assembly. But, Honorable Speaker, one thing I would like to contribute here is we were told during our retreat, budget retreat 2020 budget estimates that 60% of our national budget goes to procurement. And we understood that definitely most of these procurements do not go by the right way. So coming up with this anti-corruption bill would go a long way in addressing the issue of procurement in the Gambia. Only a small contribution I would want to pursue here is that after the establishment of the Gambia Anti-Corruption Commission, I would urge the Commission through the Honorable Minister, Attorney General, through the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, for this Commission to go beyond the highway during the sensitization tours that they would make, because sometimes, if you look at the Constitutional Review Commission on the sensitization tour schedules that they have, all their sensitization tours, most of them, they hold them along the highway. And definitely, the most remote areas of the Gambia need also to be sensitized. So, therefore, as we said, public support to combating corruption is paramount. Therefore, this commission should take it upon themselves to reach the most remote areas of the Gambia so that they will also know the pros and the cons of this bill. Honorable Speaker, the Anti-Corruption Commission should bail the cat first, because I know after the establishment of this commission, I know the honorable members would go back to their constituents, tell them what this bill contains. But definitely, it is the Anti-Corruption Commission that should first bail the cat, and then members would follow up. So thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Upper Salon.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, today we are dealing with a very delicate animal called corruption that actually shows itself in various forms. And this animal actually attacks the fundamental core values of a human being. And that's the reason why when we try to fight, it always tries to fight back. But we must start somewhere. Now, I quite agree with the Honorable Member for Serekunda when he mentioned about some of these big corporations that actually are what they are today because of what they have done in the past. And when he mentioned that, my mind went straight to one of the biggest companies in Germany called Siemens. And this is a company that actually built almost everything on its own through corrupt practices across the globe. And with the intervention of the United States and other countries, they were able to bring that to a halt. And that's the reason why when people mention here about high salaries, low salaries, about corruption, well, you see what happened last year with Nissan, their CEO, who's paid millions of dollars, high salaries, but yet still he's corrupt. Then you look at our country, or I can tell the Western Sahara, for example, where salaries actually are also considered very low, and you say people are also corrupt. So where are we? Is it because of low salaries, or is it because of high salaries why people are corrupt? I do not know. But I think what is very clear here is that we are dealing with a very delicate issue, and I think it needs proper evaluation, and it also needs due attention. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Minister, because I'm just trying to confine myself to the objects and the reason. He mentioned here that the establishment, it provides a legal framework to fight against corruption. I think this is very clear. He's trying to fight corruption, but there is no way anybody can stop corruption. But you just try to fight, and again, we are certain that when you fight corruption, it also fights back. So the fighting continues, and again, I can see the sense in this bill when he seeks to actually repeal what we have in 2012, because it was insufficient, and that's been replaced by the one for 2019, which is the subject of discussion here today. Honorable Speaker, my colleague, who's also on the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, which I'm also a member, he was quite right when he mentioned the figure of 50 billion, that is about illicit financial flows that goes out of Africa every year. But it's also important to highlight the majority of that actually deals with trade finance. Corruption actually is also a part of it, a small component of it, but majority of it actually deals with trade finance. And I think it's about time this continent of Africa, we really look at the issues surrounding these illicit financial flows, of which corruption is actually a part of. Now, if you look at the amount, actually, the kind of aid that comes to Africa, and what goes outside of Africa through illicit financial flows, you will see that it's actually twice. Basically, we are actually giving out to other countries, supporting them. Because that's what actually happens. What we are giving out through corruption or corrupt practices, money laundering, what goes out of Africa is actually twice what the help that is coming into this continent. And I think it's about time we critically look at the issues and see a way to fight them. Now, Honorable Speaker, I think on the objects and reasons here, the Minister actually has indicated here about investigation, prosecution, prevention, asset recovery, etc. I would like to get more information about the reporting. I think reporting of corrupt practices is an issue in Africa itself, and Gambia is no exception. How do you report these things? Because when you go online, Facebook or some social media, all the time they say, oh, this government is corrupt, this institution is corrupt. But do you think just saying it on social media would actually solve anything? Can we file criminal complaints against people, against institutions, about corrupt practices that are actually going on? Who is going to report these issues, and how are these issues going to be reported? I think this is a fundamental thing that we have to ask ourselves. Just merely saying government is corrupt, this ministry is corrupt, this institution is corrupt, and so what? What's the next step? What are you going to do? You have evidences. What are you going to do with what you have? Or what are you going to do? Because as honorable members, well, personally, I cannot stand here and then say this particular ministry is corrupt or this institution. I can say that because I don't have any evidence to say that. But if you do, as a Gambian, what prevents you from filing a criminal complaint against those institutions? What prevents you? What stops you from doing that? So, and I think that's why I want to leave that to the minister to help me understand how is the reporting going to be done. I saw somewhere that there's a protection for this, well, whistleblowers, if I may call it. But again, there must be a systematic way on which we can report these issues. People got to know. Perhaps if they know, they will do better instead of just, saying it on the radios or on social media, this is corrupt, this is whatever. I think there must be a clear path on which these issues can be reported so that the government or whoever is responsible can take it further up. Honorable Speaker, I think, again, the importance of actually supporting this bill. You remember last year, and I think you gave a speech in South Africa about winning the fight against corruption, which was an AU theme, which is a sustainable path to Africa's transformation. And I personally believe this could also be a sustainable path for the transformation of this country, because we really need to fight. And I think this is a good starting point. Let's have the fundamental laws that will actually help us to fight this war. Because this is a war that cannot be easily won, and this is a war that will fight you back at all fronts. So I think this is a good start. And when we come to the debate proper, I think I will raise some of the other issues actually I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Central Badibu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The bill is long overdue, as said by other colleagues. But as the saying goes, goodness is never late. Madam Speaker, I want to join my colleagues to thank the Honorable Minister for appearing before us with such a bill. Madam Speaker, the significance of the bill cannot be underscored, since it will maximize our production, eradicate poverty, transform our infrastructure, and to make our government responsible. Moreover, impart moral into our lives. Madam Speaker, it will also promote or protect the democracy that we are talking of. And it will also promote our relationship with the wider world. Since corruption is a global menace, and I believe this is a journey that we have begun to wage war against corruption. But Madam Speaker, I have a fear. Having the law in place is one thing, but to make sure that the law works is another thing. Madam Speaker, we must have leaders who are ready to battle corruption. We have to learn from Tanzania, the president. Leadership matters a lot when you want to carry out such a crusade. If we don't have the right people, we will fail. Charity begins at home. And I believe our president and the justice minister, you must be very strong to ensure that this bill or the commission that you plan to exist to work well. If the leaders are not ready to battle up corruption, it's going to be a failed crusade. As the saying goes, when the head gets intoxicated, it affects the whole body. So the heads must be ready to ensure that the state funds are well managed, because the purpose of having such a bill is to ensure that the state resources, our national key, is in the safe hand. What did the president of Tanzania do, or did? In 2015 to 2016, the amount of money that they have raised from corrupt people and the corrupt practices amounted to almost $430 million US. Are we ready to learn from Tanzania? Madam Speaker, we have seen it in the Gambia just of recent, 2 weeks or within the week, where our government vehicles were abused, escorting the president to go and meet the farmers. That's the beginning of corruption. Yes, that's the beginning of corruption. If you have such a bill before us, I think the bill in the near future will address such, because we cannot be just digging. Some people are trying to, fill the, fill the holes like that. We cannot. We must be ready as a country, and as National Assembly, are we ready to champion the cause, to communicate to our people about the bill, because our people must be informed about these laws. The laws should not be only on papers, but our people, our citizens need to be communicated so that the alcalos, the sefos, the imams, and all the sectors know that corruption is a serious crime. Though it's all the religions, in this country, all the Bible, the Quran, condemn it. But still we do it. We either become good Muslims or good Christians or good infidels. But we have to be ready to do what is expected from us. Madam Speaker, this country suffered a lot. Historians have spoken from the First Republic to the Second Republic. But as honorable nominated member said, since it's a transitional government, within 2 years, what we have learned, what we have seen in this country is not encouraging. It's not encouraging. So are we really ready to emancipate this country economically? Are we ready to welcome such a bill? Yes, we are all celebrating. Yes, the bill comes before us at the right time. But will it serve for its purpose? I know the merit is very clear. The objective is very clear. It's very sound. But I have a great fear, since we sometimes serve as enablers. Madam Speaker, the war is a war for all of us, including yourself, as the Speaker of this National Assembly, because we are all part of history. We are all history makers.
Take home in the Gambia. It's really a concern. And if there's a study already, and the study has given revelation in Africa that these low-income earners serve as a prerequisite to some of the corrupt practices that happen within their offices. So in addressing that, you should not just blame where you stumble, where you fall, but your stumbling point. However, I think at the committee stage, the various committee will go in to make a thorough investigation about the former act, that's 2012 act, what has been a challenge for implementations. And there, they would come up with recommendations, or possible recommendations, to give to this new act in 2019 act. And basically, the committee should really look at what were the challenges for 2012 Anti-Corruption Act not being fully implemented. What were the hindrances? What were the challenges? Then we can come with a possible recommendation to tidy this particular act that we are about to pass. So definitely, I concur with him that social injustice really need to be addressed if we are to fight against corruption. I thank you so much for indulgence.
Thank you very much, honorable members. So far, we've had 26 interventions. And I would, at this point in time, like to call on the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice to respond to the issues that have been raised by honorable members. And, of course, to wind up the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I do not think I have much to add. Perhaps one or two comments in reaction to one or two questions. I am indeed pleased to hear the overwhelming support for this bill. But allow me to also inject a dose of reality to the honorable members that it is not this bill that is going to create a corrupt-free society, if that exists anywhere at all. This bill is one of several tools and mechanisms that should be used to fight corruption from taking root in society. And as far as I'm concerned, the principal one is the fight against the root causes of corruption, poverty. I think once we also realize that, then perhaps half the job is done. But there's nothing like a free, corrupt-free society, nowhere. But as some of you have said, honorable members, this is indeed a start, and a good start. Perhaps in response as well to the honorable member for Serekunda, that we need to strengthen the existing frameworks, such as the Code of Conduct for Public Officers. I absolutely agree with him that those need to be strengthened. But it does not mean that we cannot also explore other mechanisms that could complement the Code of Conduct, particularly mechanisms that seek to enforce through the criminal process corrupt practices. The sanctions that are provided under the Code of Conduct for Public Officers are civil. But when you have the threat of the use of the criminal sanction, then perhaps it will aid in the deterrence of corrupt practices. So the two can go together. They are complementary, in my view. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I am happy to share with the Assembly a matrix that we have created to demonstrate the difference between the old Act and the new Act in very detail for you to look at during the consideration of this bill at the committee stage, I believe. But what this new bill seeks to do principally is to provide more independence to the Anti-Corruption Commission, to give greater powers, particularly investigative powers, including more latitude for investigative techniques. It creates the offense in respect of private sector corruption. And above all, among other things, it creates protection for whistleblowers. These are some of the very new additions that this bill introduces, which were not included in the previous bill. But as I said, we will provide the honorable members with a matrix that we have produced that shows in quite clear terms what has been added, what has been amended, or we introduced in a different form in this new bill. On the question by the honorable member for Woolly East as to whether, that he didn't see any anti-money laundering provisions, the honorable member will notice that this bill does not contain a lot of offenses. It contains some, but those are very, very new. For the first time, we are having those offenses in this country, and they relate strictly to anti-corruption related crimes. But it does not preclude the Commission from looking at other offenses contained elsewhere in the laws of the Gambia. Anti-money laundering legislations are contained in the Anti-Money Laundering Act. That is already provided for under those acts, and nothing stops them from relying on those provisions, so long as it falls within their jurisdiction. That's an important qualification. On the question by the member for Upper Salum, in terms of the reporting mechanisms, I am glad that the Upper Salum member has seen the provisions on the protection of whistleblowers. Certainly, there are mechanisms for reporting or making complaints to the Commission, and the Commission, as a responsible body, will, of course, look at the complaint and decide on its own whether it requires further investigative action or not. They will have to make that determination as an independent institution. But there are procedures established in the Act for the confidentiality of information that will be communicated to the Commission. But certainly this has to be accompanied by a lot of sensitization, a lot of public awareness activities so that people understand what avenues to use to bring complaints. On the concern expressed by the Honorable Deputy Speaker on implementation, I do share those concerns with him, except to add that as far as I'm concerned and the government is concerned, while having these laws in place are an important first step, the more important part of this process is the caliber of people that are entrusted with these activities. And going by our experience in all the other commissions that we have established so far, the TIRC, the CRC, the National Human Rights Commission, I am hopeful that we will again follow that trajectory to ensure that people of proven integrity and credibility are also appointed to this commission. Ultimately, the National Assembly has a role to play in this process because the Act does indicate that the majority and minority leaders of the National Assembly will form part of the vetting committee, in addition to members of civil society organizations, the Gambia Bar Association, etc. So they will form part of the vetting committee, and we believe that ultimately we will find candidates, members whose credibility or integrity is beyond reproach, because it's important for the public to have confidence in the commissioners as well. That is key. I believe on the question from the Honorable Member for Fonyi Brevet as to whether prevention or assets recovery already exists within the judiciary, well, not in the same way as it is here. The judiciary is only seized of a matter that is brought before it. The Anti-Corruption Commission is more proactive in that. I mean, in this case, it can actually initiate investigations and deal with those investigations by itself. So I think their ability to deal with preventive or prevention or assets recovery is far more wide-ranging, more effective than the judiciary, which always requires someone else to trigger that process. Honorable Speaker, I'm not sure if I have completed all the questions, but perhaps one last comment from Brikama South, from the member for Brikama South, that we consult with the finance minister on the budget for this. We have taken note of that. We will engage with the Ministry of Finance, and we will be guided by their views on this. But apart from that, I believe I have exhausted all the comments, and I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and all the honorable members of this House for their contributions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of honorable members, we also wish to thank you and your team. And honorable members, in accordance with clause 68, subclause 1 of the standing orders, the bill is hereby referred to the Assembly Business Committee for committal to the relevant National Assembly Committee. And at this point in time, proposing that we suspend the sittings for a break, and we come back at, can we come back at 3:30? Yes, okay. So the Assembly stands suspended till 3:30. Thank you very much.
yara ñilla domoro ka diatel
boy jannon sikes restaurant
e say nakko be ni na dimbal nimbe domoro kala janno
domoro seneyata adiyata topotoro fanan kendema bije luntan during tamala abeka domoro ki janni adi manda wala de te ka we bijele anim fanan ka fadi jang ikono e fa e ka fa minne ko pastry anim bakery iko fanan be kalele badde lomba conference lomba workshop lomba ye fo fendin lon dunia kono domoro betama ñillom international o toda number 1
amanke ba domo la jandama
e sa domo jang is atariya
wo mu kubandi
sa nakko sa futandin
e oto sa nakko be mu sikes restaurant
ndafa na janna mu yat ni manje dorom bijam
aban
CK's Restaurant, known for best quality food and customer satisfaction.